My name is Astrid. I am a current graduate student at Emerson College, studying in the Communication Sciences and Disorders program. I'm about to graduate this August, very exciting. I use the she series of pronouns, and I'm also the president of the newest grad organization called BLANG, stands for Bilingual Language and Literacy and Networking Investigative Group. We kind of get together once a month, at least once a month, and we just talk about events that relate to the CSD field, particularly in underrepresented communities. So we bring guest speakers and we discuss their research and how we can implement that in our future practice.
Why did you choose a thesis project to do in the first place?
I have linguistics as my undergraduate degree. And the whole time I was in undergrad school for my bachelor's, I knew that I wanted to do a thesis because I studied linguistics, and basically linguistics is the study of language. And throughout my undergrad career, I did various research projects, but not necessarily a thesis. It was more like class projects that it became into a research project. And I always wanted to do the experience of like writing a thesis, like knowing more about research in a different level. So when I came into grad school, I already knew that I wanted to do a thesis, and my interest is around bilingualism because I am bilingual. And I talked to my current thesis mentor, and her name's Robin Danzak, and we just got together in the fall. I expressed my interest, and it just kind of took up from there.
What's your thesis about?
Yeah, so I'm examining the perspective of Latinx caregivers who have autistic children and who receive services from school SLP. So the child receives speech language services. Initially, I wanted to have the child's SLP to be monolingual and have mediated conversation between the both of them, with like I would serve as the mediator. And unfortunately, because of COVID, recruitment was very hard, so I had to adjust my plans. But luckily I was able to interview two sets of pairs and got was able to do dyadic interviewing. That's the theme of my research project, and we talked for about an hour, and I got to hear the lived experiences of the caregiver, and also how that cultural background of being a Latinx mother with an autistic child interferes with receiving services from a speech language pathologist that doesn't have enough proficiency in their native language. So that's kind of the gist of what my thesis is about. I'm still in the process of coding, analyzing data, and I'm moving on to my results section actually right now. So there's more to come. It's not finalized, but basically I wanted to have an opportunity for caregivers and their child's SLP to come together and just learn from each other's responses, because typically when you interview someone one-on-one, you may or may not say things that may not have occurred to you if you were in a group setting. So the goal of dyadic interviewing is for both participants to learn from each other's responses and also add on to what each other said based on what they heard.
What's been your favorite thing about working on your thesis?
Typically, research in underrepresented communities is under-researched. So I wanted to increase or like elevate the voices of these population, right? So that was my main reason for why. And I feel that if I hadn't taken that approach, it wouldn't have been as impactful, because the voices of these two pairs of mothers that I interviewed just like resonated in a different level, because I could see myself like falling in the shoes of those individuals. And particularly, there's a lot of stigma, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of just misrepresentation of the Latinx community in the field of speech language pathology. So it's very important for monolingual speech language pathologies, or even like myself or other future SLPs or current SLPs, to like be aware of what are the best ways to interact with individuals who come from a different background than yourself. It was very impactful in that you could feel the mothers like needing to have that conversation. It could be very easy to go into a school setting and you be the SLP, have a huge caseload, and it can be really easy to not keep that line of communication open with the parents because there's a lot of things going on in the school. And just like you can feel the need that these mothers had when given the opportunity, right? So it's important to recognize that when you're in the shoes of like being a service provider, you take into consideration the family as a whole, and sometimes it's hard to do that in the school setting. So I wanted to just kind of see what impact can I create now with my thesis, and further that when I graduate and continue to research, because my main goal was to be able to have a support group, like create a support group where after the interviews, we kind of like come back as a group and debrief of how the interview went and have it be a supportive environment. Fortunately, I couldn't do that, but that doesn't mean I can't still do that.
My name is Kaila Harris, and I'm a second-year graduate student in the Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders. And I came to CSD with a non-CSD background. My background is in music. My undergraduate is music performance and voice. And that's what initially led me to CSD, and I'm loving it.
Why did you choose a thesis project to do?
Yeah, I wasn't sure at first about the thesis project formally, but I knew coming to Emerson that I wanted to get involved with research in some way because I never really have. And it's something that I wanted to explore, that I'm curious about. Right now, I'm really focused on obviously kind of getting my clinical feet under me and getting out into the world and getting that clinical experience. But I love academia and I love kind of collaboration and work with others. And so it seems likely that I would consider research in the future as well. So really just wanted to get that experience.
What's your thesis about?
So my thesis explores client perceptions of gender affirming voice therapy, specifically focused on voice feminization. And I'm doing that through a survey-based model with some follow-up interviews as well with a subset of the participants. So really looking at what clients' experiences are in voice therapy and what they report as being helpful or possibly unhelpful, to really get their voice into the research conversation around gender affirming voice modification.
What's been your favorite thing about working on your thesis?
I think there's two parts. The first is, I alluded to this in like my why do a research thesis, but getting to work with a team of advisors who are, have their own experience clinically and in research and their own specialties, who are there to really like guide me through this and talk me through it. And I've been learning so much, and I think that's really cool and something you only get when you're in like a supportive academic environment. So that's been amazing. And then second is talking to the clients I did interviews with was so interesting and a really kind of special, unique glimpse into, just 5 individuals' experience that normally when I'm sitting across the table in a clinical setting with, like, I'm not getting to that depth of their experience of therapy. We're doing the work together. So that was really, really cool.
My name is Ellen, and I am a grad student in Communication Sciences and Disorders, and I'm graduating in August 2021.
Why did you choose a thesis project to do?
I chose to do a thesis project because I was really interested in gaining firsthand experience with the entire research process, from generating a research question to looking at literature that's already out there and then sort of developing a project from there. And I wanted to do this because these learning about the process from the inside will help me interpret and apply research going forward. And research is a really important component of evidence-based practice as a clinician. So being able to understand the process and understand the limitations of research projects and then being able to apply them and eventually contributing to research are all priorities that I want to continue going forward in my career.
What is your thesis about?
Sure. My thesis project is looking at select semantic or meaning-based and syntactic or form-based features of verbs used by children with autism spectrum disorder. Specifically, I'm looking at theory of mind verbs, which express thoughts and feelings and mental states such as I like, I don't like, I think, I want, things like that. And these are really interesting because they can take a certain form of complex syntax where a clause that can stand alone as a sentence can follow these verbs. For example, I could say, I think we should go to the park, and we should go to the park can stand alone as a sentence. And lots of verbs that take this type of syntax are theory of mind verbs, but not all of them. So I'm interested in looking at the proportions of theory of mind verbs compared to other verbs that are taking this complex syntax in the expressive language use of 9-year-old children with autism spectrum disorders.
What's been your favorite thing about working on your thesis?
So some of my favorite parts of working on my thesis are the opportunity to work with experienced researchers at the Little Lab. It's been really, really fantastic to have their mentorship and sort of walking through making hard decisions that come with the research project and thinking about potential limitations, sort of forward thinking about those and troubleshooting as we go along. It's been great to have the support. And my other favorite part is when I notice the linguistic structures that I'm studying in both the data that I'm collecting and also when kids are speaking in my clinical experiences. I've started being more attuned to the things that they're saying and the syntax that they're using, which has been really, really fun and definitely informed by the data collection process.
My name is Toby Lowenstein. I'm a second-year graduate student in the Communication Sciences and Disorders Master's program at Emerson.
Why did you choose to do a thesis project?
I chose to do a thesis because I thought it was a really great opportunity to dive deep into an area of interest within the field and to be able to do a project that I can see from start to finish, which just provides so many opportunities to learn and to go more in depth about something that I'm really interested in.
What is your thesis about?
So I am looking into the experiences and perspectives of culturally and linguistically diverse adolescents regarding their speech and language therapy and their communication. I'm doing this through a method called photo voice, which is a qualitative method where I gave the students some prompts and they answered those prompts with photographs and then we discussed them. So it's really all about learning about their perspectives, which I was really interested in because I think that's an area of research to explore more. I think our client perspectives are so important. And specifically, our field of speech language pathology is predominantly white female field of monolingual English speakers. And so it's just so important to lift up the voices of our clients who are culturally and linguistically diverse.
What's been your favorite thing about working on your thesis project?
My favorite thing about working on my thesis project, as I mentioned before, I think is this project-based learning. As an educator and as a student, I really enjoy project-based learning and think it's just such a great way to deep dive into things. And so having this project that I can see from start to finish and to have to work through some challenges. I'm considering myself a planner and I can create a thorough plan, but this has really given me the opportunity to flex that, like go with the flow part of my brain, to be able to have challenges occur and to try to change the plan to meet them, which sometimes means going back to square one. That's really happened in this project, but has been a really nice opportunity for me to learn how to deal with challenges and when things don't go right.
Hello there. I'm Rachel Arnold. I'm a second year in the Communication Sciences and Disorders Master's program.
Why did you choose a thesis project to do?
So this question is a little bit involved when I first started at Emerson, I joined the Little Lab, headed by Rhiannon Leister and Lisa Weissman-Well, and I had the opportunity to observe a second year at the time working on her thesis. I actually got to help transcribe and code some of the language samples she was using. I got to listen to her explain the process and talk through what she was working on at the moment, and that kind of opened my eyes to the opportunity of working on a thesis. Also, since I was a part of a Little Lab, I had insight that they have access to this amazing, huge data set, and it gave me the opportunity to look into a very specific thing that I was already interested in. So I kind of felt like this opportunity fell into my lap, and I couldn't say no, But then also, I am kind of one to want to push myself. I know I can take tests and do well. Comps is a scary concept, but I wanted the opportunity to push myself in a way and do something that I've never tried before. So I said yes to the thesis.
What is your thesis about?
Okay, so my thesis is a longitudinal project looking at the language use of children on the autism spectrum, well, from childhood into adulthood, because we have this fantastic longitudinal data set. So I'm looking at the language use at age 5, age 9, and in adulthood to see how these unusual types of language change. So unusual meaning echolalia, which is like repeating others, or perseveration, which is repeating oneself. People on the autism spectrum also often use weird word choices or change the order of their wording. So I think all of that is super interesting. And I had the chance to do a qualitative review of these different features and see how they change from childhood into adulthood and see if they relate to any adult outcomes. So I really enjoyed looking into the subject I am super interested in.
What's been your favorite thing about working on your thesis?
I think my favorite thing about working on a thesis is learning about myself. It's kind of an independent study where I have advisors and a committee who are here to answer my questions and help me wherever I need it, but it's really up to me to make my timeline and decide when and what I'm going to work on. And it's a big learning process when you have to go through that kind of independently. I learned areas that I, might need a little bit more support in, and I learned when to ask for help, which is something that I can carry forward into the field with me. So when I start my CF, I'll hopefully recognize when I'm getting into a place that I need to ask for more help. And that's, I think, a really important skill to learn.